Good day, dear students. How are you? I hope that you have learned something on our first three lessons on the philosophical, sociological, and anthropological perspectives of the self. Now, let's proceed to our psychological perspective of the self. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So, here are the learning outcomes that we should attain at the end of this learning session. First, you will be able to determine your self esteem through the Rosenberg self esteem scale. Differentiate self-esteem and self-concept, enumerate the dimensions of self-concept, differentiate ideal from real self, and of course, you'll be able to describe it. So when we say psychology, what words do you associate with this? Is it reading the mind, or is it related to our innate self? So we all have our conceptions, but psychology is the scientific study of the human behavior and mental processes. When we say mental processes, this consists of our strategic decision making, problem solving, thinking, perception, and the like. So for your activity 8 under page 12, the self-esteem test, kindly do it, but congratulations if you have already done it. So whether you have done it or not, I'd like to share with you the interpretation. So for this activity, I'd like you to know the sum of your scores or your ratings for items 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 10. If you have answered strongly agreed, that is scored as 3. Then agree is 2, disagree is 1, and strongly agree is 0. So if you got the sum of 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8, and number 10, then of course write it. And of course, let us proceed to items 2, 5, 6, and 9. There would be a reversed valence. So for items 2, 5, 6, and 9, if you have answered strongly agree, that is scored as 0. If agree, that is 1. If disagree, that is 2. And of course, strongly disagree is scored 3. So get the sum of that, then get the total of the two sets of scores. Then if your total ranges from 15 to 25, you belong to the normal range, having self-esteem as a normal. And of course, if you got 15 and below, or below 15 na score, you belong to the low self-esteem of people. So what is the implication of that? If you are below 15, okay, if you have that score, then kindly give an effort in improving your self-esteem, lean towards positivity, and of course, do lots of considerations in making yourself look at the brighter side. Remember, in every challenge, there is what we call silver lining. And through God's grace, we will thrive and see ourselves more beautifully in a positive manner. And if you fall within the normal range, good job. Okay? But be vigilant so that you'll not fall on the low self-esteem range. So let's proceed. Let us differentiate self-esteem versus self-concept. When we say self-esteem, that is your own worth, okay? That is your emotional evaluation of your own worth. And of course, that is a decision made by an individual as an attitude towards self. So what is your attitude towards yourself? Do you love yourself or not? Okay. At the end of the day, when you are alone inside your room, are you happy or not? So that contributes to your self-esteem. Let's proceed to the self-concept. Of course, self-concept comprises our beliefs, our personality traits, physical characteristics, abilities, values, goals, and roles. So, ang dami pa lang nagko-contribute na katangian natin para ganito ang magiging self-concept natin. For example, I'd cite an example using my own experience. Okay, I have a good self-concept right now because I believe that it is through God that I can do everything. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That may sound very idealistic for those who do not believe yet, or for those who did not yet have lots of experiences in life. But then, as for me, Okay, that is an important verse that could contribute to my positive self-concept. As to my values, I value responsibility, accountability, and honesty. So, yun, I love people who are like that because I am that too. And when it comes to goals, yes, I am goal oriented. And once I hit one goal at a time, okay, I am happy. When it comes to personality trait, yes, I was introvert then, but then I've learned to be extrovert in a healthy manner. So that contributes to my healthy self-concept. Sa iyo, ano kaya ang mga beliefs mo, personality traits mo, physical characteristics, among others, that contribute to your self-concept, either in a negative self-concept or positive self-concept? That's a point for you to ponder on. Kung leaning towards negative, then you have lots of opportunities to improve on. So self-concept becomes abstract and complex as we grow and is organized into a variety of different cognitive aspects of the self known as self-schemas. Self-schemas are the images, mental images that we have, and it may have been affected through our daily lives from childhood until the present. Okay? So self-esteem is how you rate yourself. It is also called as the self-evaluation. So if you would rate yourself from 1 to 10 and 1 as the lowest, 10 as the highest, what could it be? Okay? While self-concept is a sum total of all the knowledge and information you have about yourself, it is also called a self-image. An example would be my experience as well. Sorry ha, ako yung sarili ko ang naging example ko pa kasi hindi ko kayo nakakasalamuha. I'd like to cite an example using your experiences, but then okay, hintayin na lang natin yung time na magkita-kita tayo. And of course, you may have your own experiences and just comment when I have posted this recorded presentation already. Okay? Sum total ang self-concept gaya nga natin ng sinabi natin kanina, yung mga beliefs, attitude, and the like na contribute sa self-concept. And of course, the self-concept is the self-image already. Kaya lang sa mga artista, di ba? Ang nagiging image nila ay positive, not instantly, kasi tinatrabaho na nila yon over time. Iniiwasan nila yung mga chismis or positive or negative news dahil inaalagaan nila yung self-image nila because that will contribute to more projects to them, more fans, consistent love from the masses, ganun. So, when we ask, am I good enough? We are leaning towards self-esteem. But when we ask, who am I? It is towards self-concept. So let us learn now the dimensions of self-concept because we believe that self-concept is leaning towards the holistic awareness of ourselves because of the physical, social, educational, intellectual, and moral selves that we have. When we talk about physical self, it includes our appearance, which plays an important role in social judgments and affects the self-concept. Okay. One of the examples would be when I was very thin, okay, during elementary years, and that my classmates were healthy. I was bullied because of my physique. Okay. At first, I was very disappointed, frustrated on why people would bully me because of my appearance. But it is not my fault. Okay? So at first, very down ako. But then as time passes by, I have instilled in my mind that I am stronger than the bullies. Okay, that may sound very idealistic, but then it takes a strong person to think of it. Remember, every bully person is weak inside. They really need help. So, if we are bullied, we could be of help to those who bully us. Okay? So, wag tayong magpa-control sa sinasabi nila, although may effect talaga, especially sa mga bata, at paglaki nila ay maalala pa nila, pero it is sweeter to think that I have thrived. Hindi ako nagpalamon sa mga bully na iyon. Magandang marinig yan mula sa inyo din. Okay? So, under physical self-esteem, studies illustrate how severely one unattractive feature can affect the self-concept. Okay, I would cite an example about myself. So, aside from being thin, I was dark and I had lots of pimples when I was studying. Okay, so those physique and appearances that I have had contributed to my being shy. Okay, very shy, very introvert. So I just told myself that I am a student, therefore I study hard. So, doon ko dinivert yung energy ko na kahit very shy ako, at least nag-excel sa classroom. Okay? Pero at the end of the day, tinatanong ko ang sarili ko, bakit hiyang-hiya ako sa sarili ko? Bakit very shy ako dahil ganito ako? Okay? But at the brighter side, as I grew up, I learned how to enhance myself. Okay? I learned how to use the beauty within me, the innate beauty within me to still appear beautiful. Yan. It takes time, really. So for the physical self, I'd like you to search on YouTube the video entitled Dove Real Beauty Sketches. You're more beautiful than you think. Then after watching the video, kindly answer the guide questions. In the video, you could see that beauty is relative, that it is not uniform across race or ethnicities because we are unique. Okay, one person is unique to the other, then we could also consider other people from other races and ethnicities beautiful as they are. So ayan, we are beautiful in our own way. You could also search the song of Christina Aguilera entitled Beautiful. In that way, you could see that we are beautiful really inside and out, uniquely. So let's proceed to our social self. The social group judges a person in terms of his conformity or obedience to group expectations regarding proper performance, behavior, and role playing. Ayan. Kaya nga, meron tayong tinatawag minsan na peer pressure kasi kung hindi mag-conform ang isa sa gusto ng grupo ay parang it's a taboo at outcast siya. Pero pag-isipin natin, yung peer pressure pala ay maganda kung maganda naman ang gusto ng isang grupo towards its members. Pero nagiging negative siya kung yung peer pressure natin ay leaning towards unhealthy practices na nakakaapekto sa future sa buhay ng isang kabataan. So, let us begin on what kind of group we are belonging to or we are joining to. So, under social self as well, it says here that social judgments serve as the basis for self-evaluation. Okay, remember that our self-evaluation has a has an effect on our mental health. Therefore, we should not just lean on what others or what other people would say to us because we have our various versions of ourselves. The social self is just one. Okay? So do not neglect their judgments, but then we should not dwell with it, especially that we know who we really are. So punta naman po tayo sa educational self. The educational institutions or the schools where we enter at we have enrolled are the chief determinants of what a person thinks of himself and of what his habitual patterns of behavior will be. Okay, an example of which is if you are enrolled in Ifugao State University, which has a trust towards cultural promotion, okay, excellence like that, then you'll be trained towards those trusts. Okay, for me, when I studied in St. Louis University, they really are leaning towards academic excellence. Talagang ititrain ka na kahit mahirap lahat ay yun pala ang mag-excrete ng creative juices mo at magagamit mo yun when you are in the real world of work. Okay. Pag i-compare ko naman sa mga estudyante na nasa BSU, they are leaning towards communal spirit. Okay? Yung excellence in extracurricular activities, leaning towards agricultural product or yes, agricultural excellence as well. So, yan, makikita sa mga fruits nila, sa mga estudyante. Kaya naman, nagbibigay sila ng halaga sa mga activities na magko-contribute para ma-attain nila yung goal or yung thrust ng school na iyon. So, ikaw, ngayon na nasa Ifugao State University ka, ano ang habitual pattern mo or behavior mo na makakatulong sa iyo at makakatulong din sa identity ng school mo? Okay, remember that despite the pandemic, we teachers are doing our best and therefore you students should also do your best. Okay, sabi dito, grades influence the student's concept. Do you agree or disagree in this, that grades define who you really are? Did you know that grades are one of the many determinants of your success? Okay, but it is not the sole or the only one that can define your success. I would like to share the thought or the idea of Rabia Mateo, our current Miss Universe, who said that character influences your future success over grades, okay? Because there are a lot of persons who did not even have a diploma, but they emerge as successful people in our country. Okay, she does not mean that you should not study because you can be successful even if you are not studying. No, she says that our character on what we do, regardless of what we do right now, will affect our success in the future. Our past character, our present character, and our future character affects our success as persons inside and out. Yun yung pinaka-bottom line ng sinabi ni Miss Rabia Mateo. You can search on that. So let's proceed to our intellectual self. It says here that intelligence provides the person with the capacity to meet and solve the problems that adjustment to life requires. Okay? Ang pagka-street smart, ang pagka-alert in terms of decision making, ang pagka-madiskarte, it of course is considered as part of your intellectual self. The person's awareness of his adjustive ability is likely to influence his self-concept. Okay, do you agree or disagree in this? Daig ng madiskarte ang matalino. You may have your own conception or agreement on this. Daig ng madiskarte ang matalino. Okay, maganda ding maging matalino at madiskarte at the same time. Okay, remember that there are lots of intelligences. Kaya merong sinabi si Howard Gardner na multiple intelligences. Okay? So, merong musically intelligent, merong linguistic intelligence, merong numerical intelligence, merong spatial intelligence. Okay? Maraming kanya-kanyang intelligence ang bawat tao. So, that is leading towards intellectual self. So, kung itong daig ng madiskarte ang matalino, kino-compare niya lang ang pagka-strategic and intelligent ng isang tao, I believe that if we discover our own potential on what intelligence we have right now, then we could use that to hone our skills, our talents, our whole self. So try to discover. Search on the multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner and try to decipher on what aspect you are you intelligent and on what aspect could you improve on. So let's proceed to our moral selves. It says here that every cultural group has its own mores or standards of approved behavior. Okay? So, sinasabi din ng mga grupo na sinasalihan natin, ito ang bad or wrong, good and right, correct or incorrect, ito ang approved at hindi approved. So, merong taboo, merong norms na fina-follow, so it contributes to our moral self. The more closely the behavior conforms to the moral standards of a group with which he is identified, the more favorable will be the effects on his personal and social adjustment. Oo nga. A group where we belong could influence how we really behave, okay? Especially when this is accepted or not. So yeah, it contributes to the development of our moral self. In our classroom alone, there are guidelines, there are rules to follow, okay? That if we follow those, that contribute to the development of our moral self. So let's proceed to the ideal and real self. Let us differentiate the two. According to Carl Rogers, an American psychologist and one of the founders of humanistic approach to psychology, he said that when a child comes into the world, the concept of self is presenting him just like a tiny dot, and it grows and develops as the child ages. Okay, so yeah, I was a tiny dot, and now I am a line. I could be a curve, I could be a question mark, depending on what experiences we have. So, according to him, he describes the self as a social product developing out of the interpersonal relationships and striving for consistency. So, if you could notice that the premises under the sociological perspective of the self are also parallel with this premise of Carl Rogers, that the relationships we have with others outside ourselves are very important in developing ourselves. There are two categories of the self. First is the ideal, and second is the real. So let us differentiate. The real self is intrinsic or innate, or what is really in us. It is the self that feels most true to what and who we really are, and is one we need to learn to love the most. Okay, our real self may be not perfect, okay? Hindi good palagi, meron ding bad side, pero if we learn to love both sides of ourselves, then it is still very helpful for us to, of course, show who we really are. If we love it, if we love our bad side, good side innately, then it could be very congruent to what we radiate to other people outside ourselves. Our ideal self is what we think we want to be, that we strive to be, and what we feel we are expected to be. It is born out of the influences outside of us. Ayan. So the outside environment influences our ideal self. Okay? For example, I would cite my experience. My real self is an introvert lady. Okay? I have just learned the extrovertness that I needed because of my roles outside my room. Okay, so my ideal self dictates that I need to be a good instructor because I am new in Ifugao State University. I need to be sociable because my husband is a counselor. I need to be good and approachable because my husband is a pastor. That's my ideal self. Okay? So let us discuss the incongruence and congruence of the ideal self and the real self. It says here, the ideal self is closer to the real self if we see here in the diagram na talagang maraming similarities ang self-concept natin, real self and ideal self, kung close sila sa isa't isa. Hindi magkalayo, kumbaga, merong pagkapareho pa rin sa tatlong areas na iyan. So, nagkakaroon ng congruence. Kung ano tayo kapag wala ng tao at kung ano tayo kapag maraming tao, ayan, ay pareho, then it contributes to our nearly or close self-concept. So, magkakapareho iyan. Nagkakaroon naman ng incongruence of the ideal and real self kung magkalayo, magkaiba, kumbaga kabaliktaran. Ganito ka, mabait ka kung maraming tao pero hindi ka mabait kung walang tao. So magkaiba. There is an incongruence and that is unhealthy. And of course, it contributes to our unhealthy self-concept as well. Yung malilito ng tao, ganito ako pag nasa place na ganito ako, magkaiba. So malilito yung tao. There is an incongruence and that is the root cause of inner contradictions, inner conflicts that a person could feel. Kumbaga walang alignment. Okay, so I hope that when we learn congruence and incongruence, we are leaning towards congruence. Okay? The way we present ourselves must be congruent on how we really know ourselves. Next, let us proceed to the false self. The false self is when the person has to comply with external rules such as being polite or otherwise following social codes, then a false self is used. Okay. Dahil yung external rules, hindi naman yan meron sa real self natin. Bakit kung mag-isa tayo, magbibigay pa ba tayo ng rule para sa sarili natin? Hindi. The external rules come out because of the roles as well that we follow. Aside from our one role as, for example, a wife, ganun. Or a student. So the false self constantly seeks to anticipate demand of others in order to maintain the relationship. So the demand of others becomes the fluid for the false self to be manifested or para maipakita. You could see in the illustration that the person wears different masks according to the roles that he has in the outside world. The false self constantly seeks to anticipate the demand from others, as I've said a while ago. But let us see the unhealthy versus the healthy false self. We have unhealthy false self if the self fits in but through a feeling of forced compliance rather than loving adaptation is of course unhealthy. If we always fit in because of forced compliance, then that's unhealthy. Why? Kasi isipin mo naman kung ikaw ay laging forced tapos hindi bukal sa loob mo, yung palagi kang parang labag sa iyong loob, kalooban yung ginagawa mo. At the end of the day, are you happy? Okay, so if you feel that you are not happy of what you do because you just comply, okay, then that's very unhealthy. So at the end of the day, let us find our happiness because happiness is the end goal of man, sabi nga ni Saint Augustine, and happiness could only be attained through knowing the truth. Meron naman tayong tinatawag na healthy false self. When the false self is functional both for the person and for society, then it is considered healthy. The healthy false self feels that it is still being true to the true self. Okay? How is this? False self na nga pero healthy pa? Okay. There are lots of opportunities wherein we are given chances to do something that we did not yet do, especially in our community. Nafo-force tayo na gawin kasi sinasabi ng mga elders. Pero at the end of the day, kung nagawa na natin, marirealize natin na, ay, kaya ko pala na magganito. So, na-discover natin yung positive potential natin sa life through that forced action or through yung utos ng ating mga elders. And at the end of the day, yun palang iniutos nila na nakadevelop sa ating sarili, naging cause para ma-discover natin ang potential natin, ay nakatulong din pala sa ating community. So, that's an example for the healthy false self. Okay, so here are the key in developing the person's self-concept. First, acknowledge and embrace your weakness. Okay, no one is perfect. Okay, we have our bright side and our dark sides, but let us acknowledge our dark sides, and from therein light comes. View challenges and opportunities. Sabi nga ng mga Chinese, crisis is both an opportunity for change and of course for us to challenge ourselves that kaya natin to. Ang mga Pilipino nga resilient, diba? Then know your learning styles and use the right learning strategies. There could be 3 learning styles: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. When we say auditory, ay gusto nating may pinapakinggan lagi at dinadirect tayo kung anong gagawin natin. Pag sinabi natin na visual, gusto natin nakikita, dinedemonstrate natin or may visual aids. Pag sinabi naman natin na kinesthetic, gusto ko, ginagawa ko. Ako mismo ang involved at gumagalaw ako para matututo ako. So, kung ano man ang learning styles natin, I hope that we are using this appropriately for us to learn effectively despite the pandemic. Remember that the brain has the ability to change throughout life. The brain was created for us to strategically think, to solve problems, and yes, the brain is for our thinking. Okay, so let us use it towards positive thinking, and this could only be done through continuous learning. So do not cease in learning, do not stop in learning. Aja, power. Learn to give and receive constructive criticism. The word criticism denotes negativity, but then when it is coupled by constructive, then you are building someone because of that criticism. There is such a thing that we call sandwich approach when giving criticism. Sandwich because we consider the negative criticism as a feeling, then we start with a positive one. Positive criticism. Then next would be the negative one or the point for improvement. Then we end on a positive note or recommendation for the person to improve on. And when we criticize others, we should ensure that yes, we point out the chance for improvement, and we we end with strategic ways or concrete ways for the person to improve on. Hindi yung iniiwan natin na hanging, ganito ka kasi. O, yun na. Mag-iisip yung tao, anong gagawin ko para ma-improve ko? Yung ganun. So, let us end with that. Yung sasuggest tayo kung anong gagawin ng tao para we end in a positive note. And then, prioritize learning than seeking approval. Okay, when we have new tasks, do you do that task? Do you accomplish that task because you want the approval, or you want to please your teacher, you want to please your parents and the like, or because you want really to learn? Okay, that's a point to ponder on. If you prioritize learning, then you keep on anticipating tasks and you enjoy doing it because you really want to learn. But if you seek approval, then makikita mo or mafe-feel mo sa sarili mo na at times magko-complain ka dahil pagod ka na. Focus on the process than the result. Okay, an example of which is a stout man who was seen a month ago, tapos ngayon ay very fit na siya. Kung ang taong nag-observe ay magko-comment lang siya na, ay, siguro kumain ka or ng dietary pills or nag-inom ka ng pampapayat kaya pumayat ka agad. Pero kung ang tao ay magtatanong, leaning towards the process, tatanungin niya, pare, ano ang ginawa mo? Bakit ka naging fit ngayon? Gusto ko ding gayahin sana. So, if we focus on the process, the good practices that other persons did are duplicated. Kung ano yung mga processes or practices na ginawa ng mga persons para maging successful, yun din yung gagayahin ng neophyte or ng bago sa mundo na iyon. So, it's very important for us to focus on the process than the result. And of course, let us cultivate a sense of purpose. Just imagine if you are a college student and you do not have yet a purpose in life, you may be shifting from one course to the other. But if you are anchoring yourself to the purpose that the Almighty has prepared for you, that yes, I will be a doctor, that's why I am taking up psychology as a pre-med course. I will be a lawyer, that's why I am preparing myself through political science as my course. Or I will be an excellent data scientist, that's why I am enrolled in BSIT. Whatever that is, okay, you should have your purpose. So reflect on it. Reward effort and actions, not trait. Same as true that we punish actions, not the person. Okay? When we give feedback, let us emphasize the action, not the person, so that we could contribute on his humility. Okay? Yes, we are boosting his self-confidence, but then let us reward the action so that we'll still see the humble, successful person, not the otherwise. And same as true when we give feedback or criticism, we focus on the action, not the person, so that the action could change and we are not criticizing a lot the person himself. Okay? Dahil yung action naman ng isang tao ay hindi naman siya yun totally. Okay? Then remember that it takes time to learn. It takes time to learn, really. Do not rush. Same as true with the several stages of life. Okay? You are a student right now. I am a worker right now. You'll have your time to work. You'll have your time to have your own family. Enjoy your life stage right now. Okay? So, this is a nugget of wisdom for all of us. Do not forget, the self is not something that one finds, it is something that one creates. Okay, so do not forget that. And remember that on whatever situation we are right now, let us always anchor what we do, what we think, and what we anticipate to have through the one, the transcendent being. So I am encouraging you that yes, whatever you do should glorify God. So thank you so much. All the best to you, psychology students, political science students, and of course BSIT students. God bless.